All right, so the last strategy that you're going to learn for solving linear systems is elimination. And we're going to go through the steps. And again, this goes on the last section of your summary sheet. So the solving by elimination, the first thing you need to do is you need to line up all of the variables in the equations above one another, as if you're going to add or subtract. Once you have them lined up above each other, you then decide either the x or the y. Both of the x's in the equations either have to have the same coefficient, or both of the y's have to have the same coefficient. The integer sign does not matter though. So for example, you could have 2 and -2. The fact that both of them are 2, that's what you're looking for. In order to do this, you might have to multiply one or both of the equations by a number. To determine the next part, you have to figure out whether you're going to add or subtract the two equations. You're going to number the two equations and communicate these steps, just like we did in the substitution, where we labeled it equation 1 and 2, and then we said what we were doing. Once you figured out if you're going to add or subtract in order to eliminate a variable, then you're going to carry out that operation in step 3 and solve. This part's the same as before. You number the answer that you got, and you take that answer and you substitute it into one of your original equations and then solve. And again, the last part, you should have now your x and your y variables, so you state what your point of intersection is. So we're going to again use the same example, so you'll see the same steps, but different sort of strategy to get to the answer. So we have our two equations here. And our first step is to line up the variables above each other, as well as the equal sign. So you can see here that the x's and the y's are not above each other. Here the x is on the right-hand side, and on this case the x is on the left-hand side. So let's bring all of these over, and then they'll line up above each other. So we're going to have -3x, and then plus y, because the y was already over there. And then we're bringing that 1 over, and we have +1 = 0. So that's the rearranging of this equation. And then this equation is exactly the same. So we have 2x, and then we have plus y plus 6 = 0. So we have our two equations above each other. The x's are lining up on top of each other, the y's are on top of each other, and the numbers are on top of each other, and the equal signs as well. Now we can move on to step 2. We have to figure out which variable we're going to eliminate, and we want to get one of them to have the same coefficients. So if you look here, we have our x's is -3 and 2. Those are not the same number coefficient. The y's, here we have a +1 and a +1. They both have a number 1 in front. Now if this was negative, that's okay. We can still leave it as long as the number part is the same. So that step is already done for us. What we could have had to do, though, is we could have had to multiply possibly an entire equation by some number. But we don't have to, so we'll just continue on with what we do have. So we have to now move to step 3, which is determine whether to add or subtract. And when you look at these two, we're trying to figure out a way that we can eliminate the variables. And to eliminate them means they need to go to 0. So if you have 1 and 1, let's look at the first case. If we add those together, a 1y plus 1y, that's going to give us 2y's. That did not make it go away. Let's look at the other case. If we subtract these two variables, we have 1y subtract +1y. And if we have 1y and we take away 1y, that gives us 0y's. So that eliminated the variable. So the operation we're going to do is subtract. So here's equation 1, equation 2. We are going to subtract equation 2 from 1. So to do this, we have -3x minus 2x, which is -5x. +1y minus +1y, which is 1 minus 1, which is 0y. So I can put plus 0y, but you don't have to, because essentially that's gone. And then we have +1 minus +6, which is +1 subtract 6, which is -5. And then we have our equal signs, and then 0 minus 0 is still 0. So what we have left is -5x minus y5 equals 0. Rearrange this and solve. That was the next part here. We have -5x equals 5. And then divide both sides by -5. And we have x equals -1, which notice is the same as before. So now I'm going to change up. And if we number this, this is number 3. We are going to sub number 3. And again, we can pick any of the equations. I'm going to go back to the original one because I know I haven't made a mistake there. I know that that is exactly what was given. So I'm going to number that number 4. I'm going to sub 3 into 4. And over here, this is step number 5. So we are putting y equals 3x minus 1, and we're going to put in what we know x is, which is -1. And again, I could have picked any of these equations. And now we solve -3 minus 1, y equals -4. And then the last part is to state the point of intersection. So therefore, the POI is x, which is right here we solved for -1, and y, which is right here, -4.